This is LBC with the Consumer Hour. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
It's 9:35 and you're listening to the LBC Consumer Hour with me, Dean Dunham. Now, emergency measures like the furlough scheme have kept many people afloat during the pandemic. But the furlough scheme is coming to an end in April, we think. And of course, unless it is extended, there'll be many people who have relied on this and other government help who will now be very, very worried. And they'll be worried about how they're going to cope, obviously, financially with debts and payments and other things like that. So earlier today, I spoke to Matt Johnfield who is the head of Debt Free London. And I started off by asking him what help is available for anyone struggling with their finances.
So any of your listeners living, working or studying in London can access Debt Free London. We're a partnership of 20 local charities that provide free and impartial advice. Our service for January and February is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can contact us on free phone 0800 808 5700 or start a web chat on our website at www.debtfree.london.
And anyone who lives outside of London, are there similar charities or similar services that can help them?
Absolutely. So we're funded by the Money Advice Service, which is why we're able to offer our advice free. And they also offer advice across the country, and details of everyone's local free advice service can be found on the Money Advice Service website.
So we all know that furlough at the moment is due to end of April, and this is one of the lifelines for many, many people. And there are some other benefits out there as well which may come to an end. How big a problem do you think this is going to be if it does end? Are we going to have a debt Armageddon on our hands?
Honestly, Dean, I don't think that's kind of exaggerating what we're seeing. So we know before the pandemic, there were 8.3 million people across the UK that had a problem debt. And 80% of the people that we supported last year said that they worried about money either quite often or all the time. As you say, the financial impact of COVID has been devastating, with close to 700,000 people in the UK forced into poverty. The recent stats suggest that some 9.6 million people's incomes now sit 25% or more below the official definition of poverty. To put that into perspective for your listeners, that's similar to pre-20th century levels of poverty. So the impact of this is going to be felt for years to come.
And when someone does call your service, what will be your top tips? What's going to be the most popular advice that you give to people who have got debt problems?
So the most common types of debt we help with are council tax and rent arrears. Between those two, that makes up almost 65% of the clients that we support. It's a common misconception that people who are in debt of their own fault. You know, they've had a splurge on credit cards and kind of it's their own fault they're in debt. All too often, it's people that are in debt through no fault of their own. It might be that they've suffered from ill health, perhaps as a result of COVID, or they've lost their job, or they've had to become a carer for someone at home. And it's those types of clients that we see all the time. The subject of finance, especially when you're into debt, can be a real taboo subject. And many of our clients feel uncomfortable speaking about it, even with their friends and family. So when they reach out for our help, we're often the first people they speak to. So kind of my advice to your listeners here is, don't suffer in silence. Don't be up late at night, not being able to sleep and putting your own health even worse. Reach out, get some free, impartial advice and take the first steps to tackling those money worries.
And finally, in the current climate, when people are reaching out to you saying, I can't pay my council tax, I can't pay perhaps a car loan, a mortgage or something like this, are you finding that the likes of the local authorities, lenders, are being reasonable and they're willing to help?
So Debt Free London, as I said, is a partnership of 20 local charities. Our local advice providers have got really good relationships with local authorities and local creditors. They have those long-established relationships. What an advisor will do, first of all, is work out all the debts that a client has got, and if they're priority debts, meaning that they could potentially lose their home or accommodation or be risking imprisonment if it's a council tax, on what are non-priority debts that we can really negotiate with. And once they've done that, they'll negotiate on behalf of the client to take that pressure away from them. And because they've got those long-established great relationships locally, they're in a really good place to do that and get a good result.
That was Matt Johnfield, the head of Debt Free London. If you need help with your finances, as well as contacting Debt Free London, if you're in London, of course, you can also contact National Debt Line. And I will provide details of that on my Twitter at Dean Dunham shortly. But as Matt says, don't bury your head in the sand. Don't think there's no one there to help. There's lots of help available. Lots of people will understand if you can't pay debts at the moment. Lots of people like the local authorities, lenders will be understanding, I should say. So don't just think that you can't do anything. Please do try.